Spring break is just around the corner, and if you're looking for a unique and historical experience, the Old Idaho Penitentiary has something special in store. From March 15th through the 23rd, visitors can explore the eerie yet fascinating history of the prison's cemetery. They have exclusive guided tours. So joining me today, we have Samuel Anderson, and he's going to tell us all about the one-of-a-kind experience you can have at the Old Idaho Penitentiary. Sam, it's so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, this is super cool because when you think about cemetery tours, I mean, my mind always goes to, eerie fall, maybe some October feel, but we get to do this now. So tell us about these cemetery tours, because from what I understand, it's kind of a rare look at the Old Idaho Pen, and this is a look that most people really don't get to see. So what can people expect when they attend?
Absolutely. The cemetery tours we're unable to offer to the public on a daily basis. They're about half-mile off-site, and so it takes a little bit of walking, a little bit of adjusting in order to get people to the cemetery and back to the prison. And because of that, we do it just during spring break. And guests can expect to go to the gallows, a cell house, and then walk all the way up to the cemetery and see the graves and hear some of the stories and legends behind it.
Okay, so there's a little bit of logistical setup to get people the full experience, if you will, because when you go to the pen on a I'll say typical tour, which is fascinating in itself, you get to hear the stories of the gallows and some of that, but actually getting to go to the cemetery, that's the whole new draw for spring break. Okay, so limited time only. If you want to go see the cemetery, you have to do it during spring break. All right, so some of the stories though, they're going to be chilling, they're going to be fascinating, right? Because we're going to see some of these graves. Let's talk about some of those particular individuals or legends that you really like to tell.
There's many different stories that are compelling, and some of those stories are quite difficult, some of those stories are tragic, and you kind of get a wide range of emotion and characters and people that spend time there. One of the darker ones that I often bring up on my cemetery tours is a man named Ed Rice. He was a miner in Wallace, Idaho in 1899. He killed Matthew Malley, a shopkeeper up there, and he was sentenced to execution, and then on November 30th, 1902, Warden Charles Arney executed him, and he's one of the individuals buried in the prison cemetery.
Really? Okay, and so like a true Idahoan's history in that space. Oh my goodness. Okay, which kind of, I can imagine that this tour also kind of helps people really understand a little bit more about the notorious stories that we hear coming out of the pen and really understand the lives of those individuals. I know some of I love the pen. We go quite often with my family to kind of check it out. There's even some stories, though, that involve young children in the penitentiary. Do we see any of that when we go up to the grave as well?
You do. Bud Ray, he came in at 18 years old. He'd stolen a horse in Blackfoot, Idaho. He passed away at 19 years old. We're not sure why exactly. The physician reported some sort of heart condition.
My goodness. Okay. All right. So what are some of the details, though, that people need to know so they can get this on their calendar for spring break, which is coming up? I mean, it's starting at the end of this week for many families here in the Treasure Valley, because I imagine these tours are going to probably fill up pretty fast.
They do. We typically take about 25 spots per tour, and then we have 4 or 5 throughout the day going into the evening. And so if you're unable to be on spring break, not everyone gets the holiday off, you can always come and visit us before the sun sets that night.
Okay, got it. And Samuel, now I know that you get to write some of these programs and these experiences for people. So what did you love about the idea of doing the grave tours during spring break in particular?
It's a really specific look into the prison's history, and you see a wide demographic of individuals. We have a few people up there who passed away serving crimes for check fraud, for insufficient funds that they tried to pass. One boy, he was 23, Frank Jones, wrote a bad check for $2.55. He was trying to steal candy, and he died during the influenza outbreak of 1918. And so you see a surprising array of individuals there, not just those executed, but those who died from illness and those who are in for less violent crimes.
Wow, so a large range of experiences, anyone from the individual that you had mentioned who actually murdered somebody to somebody who just wrote a bad check and was trying to steal candy. That's heartbreaking. Okay, and that's the experience that you get when you go to the pen, but actually to see these graves, I imagine, you know, there's going to be some emotions, like you said, around that. And when they go up to the gravesite, is the tour guide going to be telling some of these stories while they're looking at the headstones?
They will, and we have limited stones now. You know, many of them got wooden plaques that have rotted away with age. And so there's only a handful of stones up there. We're aware of at least 55 individuals that are interned there, and we can talk about many of those stories, and many of them can be touching in ways that are unexpected. Some of them can be shocking in ways that are unexpected, and so there's a lot to talk about just in one plot of land.
Okay, wow. I had no idea there was that many. You said you know of about 55? Mm-hmm. How many do you suspect is actually buried up there?
You know, 55 is the current guess. The grid is set up for 64 plots, but there's actually 66 plots, which is part of the mystery. And over the course of just a few years that I've been with the Historical Society, this number's changed, and so it may change in the future, but that's part of the penitentiaries. It has so many mysteries.
Sure does.
And I believe that's what keeps people coming back, is they want to understand a little bit more about Idaho's longest running prison.
Absolutely, it's intriguing, so intriguing. Okay, for the tours, really quick, is there an age limit for this?
You know, it's recommended for 13 and over. Okay. Of course, we let guardians have the final say on the discretion of whether their kids can handle those darker tours. But this is a darker tour, and so viewer discretion is advised.
All right, thank you so much for making sure that people understood that. All right, where do we go for more information? And like I said, to get that on the calendar.
You can check out the link at the bottom of the page. You can go to the Idaho State Historical Society, our events page. We'll have all the information you need.
Wonderful. Samuel, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone, stick around because we got more coming up right after this. The winner of our ball pit giveaway is coming up, so stick around to find out who the lucky winner is next.